think it's live. Can't really tell. All right, so we're officially live. I don't know if this mic is working, so if you happen to get on this live feed, please tell me whether or not you can hear me. We have two different mic situations going on back here. But welcome to today's weekly live, Facebook Live. I have a very special guest, my better half, also known as Charles Williams. But for all professional purposes, I will try to call him Mr. Williams. I'm laughing because, oh, I see Sylvia's on here. It was kind of funny setting this up. So I know most of you guys that don't know him, you guys don't know that he has a very funny sense of humor, and so he was using our daughter as the as what did you call her?
She's my promoter.
She was basically his promoter, his assistant. And so I had to talk through her to negotiate this interview. Don't ask me. I wish I had that kind of setup, but I actually don't. I don't know. Okay, so the other piece, Sylvia, in the negotiations that happened was that he agreed to have his voice on here, but he did not agree to show his face. Thankfully, I have shown you guys enough pictures throughout this week in this group so you guys have an idea of what he looks like. And then, of course, I have a picture of the family. I mean, everyone, I feel like, sees this picture all the time. But it is like 8 years old. Lily does not look like a 3-year old. She's 11. That's when he had hair and my hair was growing. So, yeah, times have changed. But without further ado, so Mr. Williams, we had discussed prior to today's meeting that you would share some things about yourself because part of what the people have asked, they have asked for another story of you. And any introduction that you would like to make of yourself, you're welcome to do that now.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Charles Williams from Leesville, Louisiana. Um, my wife, she's very into outdoorsy things. So am I. I grew up that way. Actually, I grew up in the time where you could walk out of your front door and every single front yard just about would have a hole in it. And you ask yourself why they had a hole in it. Because we shot marbles. That was our form of entertainment. Well, one of our forms of entertainment. Also, you think about being outside, really what is it all to do? Where it was a variety of things. Just imagine walking down the road and you can look to your left or to your right and you see a huge pecan tree. Or you see a fig tree in someone's backyard that will randomly yell at you as you hopping over the fence and taking figs. Or you'll be walking down the road and you see a honeysuckle bush and you stop and you have you 4, 5, 6 honeysuckles. You got blackberries growing alongside of the road. Did we wash them off? No. We just ate with the point of if it don't kill me within 2 to 3 steps, I'm good. So that's me with nature. That's how I grew up. That's how we survived. I mean, that's what we did. Being inside was not an option. We found being inside very, very boring. It was pointless. So everything that we did, majority of what we did, it was outside in nature. I mean, you're playing softball, pickup game of football. I mean, anything and everything just about we done outside, except for sleep, of course.
So I have a question. What is your favorite outside memory that you had? Obviously, the listeners heard your story about going fishing with your family, and from reading comments, people really liked hearing about how you were running, like running down the hill and almost running into the water. But do you have any another story that you would feel comfortable sharing with the listeners today?
I mean, there are a lot of times where I found myself in the woods for no reason at all, and it may sound kind of weird, but it is what it is. We usually would be walking down the road and someone would just randomly, hey, you want to go crawfishing? So you know us, we're running in the house, getting us some string, um, some form of meat, preferably bacon, finding crawfish holes, and there we go. 8, 9 years old, sitting down up in the ditch, and we're crawfishing with a piece of meat tied on a piece of a string.
So crawfishing. Why would you use? Because I've never gone crawfishing before, but why would you use bacon?
It was meat. It was pretty much what we heard that everyone was using, so followed the leader type thing.
Interesting. Um, so when you go crawfishing, exactly besides having bacon, how do you actually catch them?
Well, it involves a lot of patience. So you actually feel when their pinchers catch on to the bait that you have on there, and then they start tugging on your line. Then you pull it up, and hopefully it's still on there by the time that you get it up. Like I say, it was time consuming, but it was a form of enjoyment that we enjoyed. It kept us out of trouble, and I mean that was our thing.
So if we're being honest, do you think I would go crawfishing?
I believe you would try it out. I don't think your patience will be 100% into it because, like I say, it's a lot of in our form of utilizing time. It would be time wasting.
Really?
So it involves it's trial and error,
Okay.
and you'll have to guesstimate where the crawfish are, or you may just walk up on the crawfish hole.
Okay.
So it can either be fishing out of a hole or something like a little pond.
I find that you would think that I wouldn't have patience to do crawfishing.
Well, with let's just take for instance fishing out of a crawfish hole.
Okay.
It's the not knowing part. Like really,
Mm,
what's down there? Because it looks as if it's a hole that has a mound built up.
okay.
So you just slowly putting your bait down up in there, and then you're sitting.
Okay.
So to some people, well, that's boring, ain't it? No, I mean if you just doing it with one, yeah. But if you got multiple going at the same time and you're going back and forth, and you got like a little system worked out, then you might find some type of entertainment out of it.
Interesting. Okay. I could see you feeling like I would probably get bored with being idle.
Yes.
So those of you that know me, you guys know that I'm very much a busy bee. But the funny thing is about nature with me is it definitely makes me slow down and really enjoy the experience. And although I've never gone crawfishing, I would be curious to see how I would really like respond in that type of environment. So Sylvia has made quite a few comments. I believe she can hear us. She stated, I spent most of my childhood inside, and you're right. It did get boring. And she said, I love watching you watch him. That's interesting. Thank you, Sylvia. She put a heart. And she also stated, sounds like fun. I've only fished a couple of times and I loved it. Sylvia, okay, I feel like we're adding to our list of things that we're going to do post COVID. We're going to go camping on the beach in California. We've already claimed that. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to go fishing. Because I've only gone fishing once. So we're just going to add to the list, right? All right. So another question that I have, or I guess I can just share a story about when I feel like we started doing more things outdoors. I don't know if you want to say anything before I start talking.
No, go ahead. I believe I know where you're heading towards anyway. So.
Okay, so I've got an interesting story. Um, so, as you guys know, in San Antonio, I shared a little bit about our life in San Antonio. And I will say the struggle was real. Like, we struggled. It wasn't until, honestly, I think when you went into the army.
It was 2007, I think, when I decided to go active.
Yeah, when he just, so he basically went active duty in the army right before the recession hit, before everything like really crashed. Or no, it was 2008. You went to Korea. Yeah, so in 2000, right at 2007, you went in.
Yeah, 2007 was basic training, AIT, and all that. Then I did 6 months reserve time. And then I was looking how everything was going, with the recession and all. And I was like, you know what? I done the hard part. I done gained all of the discipline. Um, why not just make it a full time job instead of doing it every so often and gaining no knowledge from it? Because I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Some reserve units have discipline within the ranks. Some are just there to get the paycheck for the weekend or whatnot. But I was gun ho about going full time and just going full throttle with it. So plus being in nature is a part of being in the army, going to the field, which was a blast for me. I mean, a lot of people was happy to come out of the field, and I like, why can't we just do it for like another week or so? I mean, it is what it is. If you can't use the environment around you to make yourself comfortable, what do you have? I mean, the land is where survival started from in the get go, from the get go. So I mean, if you cannot adapt to that, you are completely lost.
All right, so Sylvia, you said you can hear us. Can you hear me? Could you hear his story really well? Or Ellen, can you hear us really well? Hi, by the way. I'm trying out new microphone situations. I've never did an interview before, so we've got two different things going on. Um, so I'm not using this one. We're using more of a podcaster mic. I could just link it in here. Like it was $39.99. Um, but anyhow, so he was just sharing his experience in the army, and I think one of the key points that you just made was that part of being in the army is being outdoors. Oftentimes people, I don't know what they think when you're in the service, but I can definitely say from being an Air Force kid to being married to someone in the army, it is quite different. Um, all right, so Ellen says, I can hear you. You're more quiet than your better half. Really? So can you hear me now? Like, am I? I'm just gonna keep testing it out. Okay. Um. So one of the stories that I wanted to share, because I was mentioning before he started talking about the army, was that our life in San Antonio, that's where we really started our lives. And our nothing really changed for us until, I guess you could say, improvement. Could be my computer. I can hear you both. I think when you move closer to your computer, your voice. Oh, okay. All right, thank you. I'm reading out loud. People checking my audio here. All right, so definitely him going into the army definitely changed. I would say our lifestyle, because part of what we were experiencing before was us literally working like 12, 14-hour days between either our full-time job or full-time plus part-time jobs, just trying to manage. And so I definitely feel like things really changed when we were stationed in Missouri. And so one of the things that I was talking to him about before we hopped on this live stream is I was like, I should really talk about the Volkswagen Marine Corps race that we did because that particular race, so back in the day, I used to train for half marathons. So a lot of my outdoor experience typically was some sort of training. And I think part of that was because I was an athlete most of my childhood, and I would say, I guess, in my 20s to a certain extent, early 20s. Um, and so by the time we got to Missouri, it was what, 2009? Yeah, 2009. I was still like training for half marathons, and we decided to train for this. It's called the Volkswagen. Was it a 5K or a 10K?
I'm not 100%
I
sure.
think it was a 10K, but it was not the normal standard race. Um, Basically, we had to climb a giant hill. Like, it was just like straight up like this. Um, we went through a mud pit, and we had to, didn't we go through a river too?
Yeah, screen we had to.
We had to go through a stream, but I don't think it was a stream because the water was like up to here. So the struggle was like really, really real. But I think about that experience because it was one of those times where we were definitely outdoors, but doing something we really enjoy. And and till this day, like after doing that race, I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever do that again. I was not expecting to be in a mud pit. Like, talk about sensory overload. I was soaking wet. I was muddy. I was hot. We were in Missouri. That means ticks. We were, how high was the mud on us? The mud was like up to here, right?
Um,
Or for you, it
well,
was your
you,
waist.
yeah, for me it
No,
was the way
for
for
me, it
you.
was here. I was like freaking almost shoulders in mud, pulling myself with the rope, trying to get out. So it was crazy, but I'm glad that we did that race. I'll never forget it. I will never forget that experience. And unfortunately, we were only in Missouri for 14 months before we moved to Southern Arizona. But I feel like that was like kind of the gateway to when we really started to do more things outdoors as a couple or as a family. So Ellen is responding. Ellen and Sylvia. Sylvia's like, that sounds like an amazing time. And Ellen said that she's like, I like the idea of mud pit, though mud pies, she likes the idea of mud pies. And then Ellen's also saying like a full body glove. Yeah, I needed a full suit, but I was literally in shorts, sneakers, and a t-shirt with the cut off arms. Like I was ill prepared. And then Sylvia says, yeah, I can't imagine you would have chosen to do that. Um, I still can't believe that I did it, but I'm a firm believer like try anything once, kind of like zip lining, try anything once, probably not going to do it again. Um, and what does she say here? Ellen says, I want to do one of those. Tell us about your first date. Oh, geez. Do you want to tell this or we should collectively tell? Our first date was when I got off from work. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Or favorite date?
Mm, hmm. Let's see. I think our favorite date was when we went to St. Louis.
Oh. Okay, so like pre kid life. there was a time, and it kind of takes me back to Missouri, um, because we for years, and when I feel like it was years, we were like just hardworking. We're still hardworking people, but like the idea of like taking a vacation or going on a date, he's like this. He's like it just we didn't know that those things existed, honestly. And so I remember this conversation we were having like it was around the holidays, and we were a dog owner at that point. We had Major, God rest his soul. But I remember saying to him, I'm like, I need a break. Like I felt like we had been working so hard, but we never took time off to just like enjoy anything. Go ahead.
Now, mind you, just imagine the scenery. We from down south. It doesn't snow,
No.
so at this time it started to snow. We still gung ho about getting to St. Louis, no hold bars. So we have a Ford Focus at the time,
Ford Focus.
and Major was what 80, 90 pounds.
Nah, Major was like 70 pounds. He was, mind you, he was an all white boxer. All white. He was
Full,
not
full
albino.
of life. So a
Yeah.
small car with a full of life, 75-pound boxer,
Puppy.
still a puppy. So we took him to the dog sitter, and as we getting ready to go, he looking at us like, "So y'all still gonna go? I mean, it is snowing. I don't know if y'all will be able to get up out of here." So we get on the highway, we driving, and then it dawns on me again. It is snowing, and you're driving in snow. So just to backtrack about the whole snow thing, my first flight
Oh, Lord.
was from San Antonio to New York.
Should
So,
you say how old you were?
no. Anyhow.
He was in his late 20s. I'll just say that.
So, I'm like, I want a window seat. I want the whole experience. I'm not going to miss anything. I think maybe 10, I would even say 15 minutes after takeoff, I'm looking at the back of my eyelids. So I'm like, I wake up, I'm looking out the window, I'm like, oh my goodness. So what was going through my mind is, in New York, it always snows. It was cold in San Antonio when I left. Ain't no way in the world I'm gonna make it through this. So I'm looking out the window. I'm like, wow, there's so much snow on the ground. It is so much snow down there. I don't know how I'm gonna make it through this. So the plane starts to descend, and I'm seeing roads, cars. I'm like, dummy, you was in the clouds. Get it out your mind. It's not gonna be that bad. So I'm like, all right, got it. So that was my first FUBAR with the snow thing. But getting back on track, we made it to St. Louis. We had
But remember, we were driving in Ford Focus, and a snowstorm was coming through.
yeah, on the way up it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad.
So we made it to the Hyatt. We had across from the arches, from the arch.
And let me backtrack here. Guys, we thought we were living our best life because we had a view of the arch. I can't even think of the name of the arch right now. The arch.
Yeah, the arch, St. Louis arch.
The arch. That's the St. Louis arch. But for us two, I feel when I say like the two young kids, I'm saying this because I felt like we were always the kids that tried but never got anywhere. Like no matter what we were trying to do in life, we always had to work 20 times harder. So for us to be able to afford to be able to stay in a nice hotel was a big deal. And it happened to have a view. Like it just, I don't know. It was the first time in our lives where we didn't really feel. Did we feel like we made it, or did we just feel like
Oh yeah. It was yeah, we made it experience because we had dinner at Ruth Chris that night.
yeah?
So yeah, we was high siding for a weekend.
I saw- we just listen again. If you only knew life in San Antonio, I mean, trust me, a lot of people don't know unless you lived in San Antonio. But the struggle was so real. So to be able, that I was able to convince him to say like, okay, New Year's, going into New Year's, can we please like go someplace or go do something? I don't want to just like start the year or end the year just like working hard and never enjoying literally the fruits of our labor. And so the fact that we drove through a snowstorm, we went to the arches. We didn't actually do like the normal tour where you go up. We didn't do all of that, but we ended up just really hanging out.
It was actually closed.
Yeah, that's right.
It was
Yeah,
closed, but we was on the side where you could see Kansas City and see
not
the
Kansas City.
no, not Kansas City. I'm sorry. Yeah,
So there's a couple of comments. Sylvia saying the St. Louis Arch.
yeah,
Yes,
that one.
yes. And then Ellen is saying, "Ooh la la! I bet y'all were so in love." And then Sylvia says, "I think we're still waiting to stay in the hotel with a view." Let me tell you. So this is the funny thing. My mom is always asking me like, "How do you always find these deals?" I never ever really pay. I don't think I ever pay full price for anything. I'm always looking for a deal. So at that particular time, I'm sure I use Expedia. Expedia. I still use Expedia and like several other like apps till this day. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere because we're in a pandemic, but I'm always trying to find like different ways to try to have that experience because trying to do it full price is just not gonna happen. But that was a fun. I'm surprised you brought that up.
Yeah, that was a fun one, but the I think the best outdoor experience as far as us being married was Jamaica.
Wow. Are you talking about when I was terrified during the zip lining?
Yes,
Yeah, I was
yes.
terrified. First off, I have a real thought about that. Okay, so let me also backtrack. My family, every 2 years, we try to do, it's kind of like a family reunion, I guess you could say. So, what we do is every 2 years, we go on a family trip. And basically, I guess a couple other people have hopped on. This particular year, was it 2006? I think that was the year that it was pre 2006, 2017. What
Yeah, 17, I think.
was it, 17? Because we moved here in 15. It was 16 because you started, yeah, it was 16. Um, okay, so Jamaica was with child. Um, But she was not on this particular trip because the funny thing is, on the family side of things, nobody has kids except Charles and I. We're the only ones with child. So at the time, she was what,
We,
5 or 6? She was little.
I think 5, and we drove to Florida.
Right. She got to stay with her cousins and her auntie in Florida. Um, no, she was in Alabama that time.
No, it was Florida.
Okay, Florida. I'm not even gonna argue. Hi, Miss Marion. Um, and
No, it was Alabama.
I think it was Alabama.
Okay.
But anyhow, so my family, we started doing these trips technically back in 2009. We did not make that trip because we were in Missouri and we were dealing with snowstorms in our first year away from being from home. We were still like broke at that point. Let's be real. That was the story. Um, I do have family there. I have my in-laws in Lakeland, Florida,
Bartow.
in Bartow. So one day I'll make it back. But anyways, we went to Jamaica, and my dad and his, emphasis, or I'm not even saying the word right, and yeah, no, in his own ways, he wanted to make sure that his daughter and son-in-law did some sort of excursion, because although we go on these trips, I'm gonna be honest, the excursions are really expensive. Um, and so I just was like, we're probably not going to do any excursions. We're just going to hang out at the resort and maybe just pick one excursion. So my dad wanted to treat us, and we ended up going on the zip lining. Um, yeah, I like the idea of zip lining, but I'm gonna be honest, I was terrified. I didn't see anything because my eyes were closed the entire time. I was scared the rope was going to snap. I was scared I was going to make it across. I'm a plus size woman. I had a broken wrist. I had on a freaking bionic brace. Okay, so this is definitely like before Summer Institute, before I met everybody. So I had a broken wrist. I couldn't break my fall because it was my right wrist. I'm right-handed. So I basically had been learning how to do everything with my left hand. But I will say, and I know he's gonna laugh at me when I say this, one of the best parts is when, because I couldn't break my own like stop or fall or whatever, is when the Jamaican men had to stop me. I was not complaining about that. He's rolling his eyes. But they were young and muscular. And, of course, they, not like they made jokes that I was plus size, but it is what it is. I mean, anyways. So that was kind of like a highlight. But I remember my mom was like, did you see this? And did you see that? No, I didn't see anything. I was just trying to survive going across several thousands of feet or whatever across the freaking jungle in Jamaica. It terrified me. Or the fact that like we went to, I'm sure you can Google it too. Do you remember that restaurant that we went to?
Oh, Rick's.
Rick's restaurant.
Rick's Cafe.
Rick's Cafe. See? He's there. Um and the whole point of Rick's Cafe, they're known for the folks jumping off the cliff, diving into the water. Yes, my heart still has palpitations from watching that. It was crazy, but it was cool to watch. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna let him share his ziplining experience because his doesn't sound nearly as scary as me. Um, and then maybe he can share a little bit more about Rick's Cafe.
I mean, the zip lining was cool. It was fun. I saw every single thing, and then we had like what a 70 between the 70 and 100-foot free fall that we did,
Oh God, I don't even want to talk about the free fall.
and that was beyond fun. Mind you, I cannot swim. Swim like a rock straight to the bottom. We went to I think it was like a spring. It wasn't Don's River
Oh
Falls,
yeah,
but
we went to a waterfall too.
we went to another waterfall, and I couldn't wait to get up in there. Mind you, nothing went over the waist, but I was in there. Um, Making it to Rick's Cafe. Wow. I'm talking about from the sunset to the cliff diving to seeing boats out up in the ocean as clear as the water was. I was like in awe. I did not want to leave at all.
So I'm just answering a couple of questions. And so Ellen was asking, were your eyes open?
Yes, the
And I
whole
was like,
time.
his eyes were open the whole time. Um, Unlike mine, I think I did one of these numbers where I'm like, I think I can see with my one good eye, my left eye. But another question that came up, Ellen says, you two are just opposites in some ways. We are absolutely opposites in a lot of ways, but then there's just these very interesting common threads, I think, through our personalities or just how we are as individuals that just make it work. Um, can we see a glare? The people want to see a glare of you. Um,
No.
he says no. Ellen says, do you two like snow? Yes or no? I'm going to let you answer first.
I would say yes because it's just crazy because if you're in it long enough, and it's just my perspective, you stop being cold,
It's
and
true.
then you're just there. But then again, I enjoy snow because of the many obstacles you find yourself overcoming being in that type of environment, i.e., slipping and falling.
Don't start. Okay, I'm going to make a comment back. Ellen says she thought glare meant like a. Are you. I thought she meant like, are they going to get a glimpse of you today?
Oh no, no.
And he said no. And she was like, no. When you mentioned those Jamaican boys, I imagined his glaring.
Oh no, because I mean, on the type, so it was kind of funny because we had tour guides, and ironically, the one female tour guide that we had, she spent majority of the time arguing with me
Yeah.
because she was trying to. She'll point out like specific things like on trees and all, and mind you, prior to her making it there, the guys had already told us what these things were. So when she started explaining, I would just blurt out the answer and just keep on walking.
He did. um Honestly, like neither one of us are ever distracted by, I don't know, I guess other people glaring at us or checking us out. I don't know. I it We always joke and say like we've been married like 30, 40 years. Sometimes we say 50 years. I don't know. When you've just been with someone for so long, and at that particular time we were, this was 2016, so we had just barely hit like 10 years. I think, yeah, 10 years of marriage at that point. Um, what was I trying to say before that? We were talking about snow and, ooh, okay, so Ellen has another question. What is your favorite kind of nature? Oh, she says Jamaican jungle or Arizona desert.
I would have to say Jamaican jungle because of the fact that even though that you're out, you get to experience more wildlife living in that part of the world versus just being hot.
His face is like hot.
It is just hot. But it's kind of crazy because I had learned to love Arizona when I initially got here. I was like, wow, it is just so hot here. Only if I could just get one bead of sweat to run down my forehead, and I think I would be fine because it is just dry. I was like, please, just let me sweat just one time. And it happened probably 4 years after I got here. I got that one bead of sweat, and it was horrible.
Oh my gosh. I would say I'm definitely more of a desert person, but I think a lot of that for health reasons, I being asthmatic and having severe eczema, like I don't have any I barely have any eczema symptoms because I'm living in such a dry climate versus the humidity. It is just not my friend. Ellen is laughing and then she's saying sweat celebration. Yeah, seriously, sweat celebration, right? Um, all right. So I think we've shared some childhood things, favorite childhood stories, and our favorite nature stories as a couple. Before we sign off, does anyone else have any other questions for us or for Mr. Williams? And also, Sylvia stated, I think the whole hiding from the camera thing is just fun for Mr. Williams. Yeah, yeah. She says, huh, I would trade you some sweat for some dry air. We have mad humidity in South Florida. Yes. Yes.
What part of Florida?
What part of Florida are you in? You're Boca Raton, correct? I think it's Boca Raton.
Oh yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, yeah. He lived in Florida for how long?
Ooh, I think 6 years.
About 6 years. It was like right before we met, give or take, somewhere in that neck of the woods. So, anyways, thank you guys for joining us. And if you have a question, I'm going to give like one more minute before I completely sign off. I appreciate you guys joining in. And I want to personally thank you, Mr. Williams, for doing this interview today. I know that you're camera shy, even though he is not a shy person at all. But thank you for sharing your outdoor experiences as a child and as part of us and how we are. Sylvia says, way west by the Everglades.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. Humidity.
near Fort Lauderdale. Oh my gosh, Sylvia, we were so close to each other.
We were there.
We were literally there. Last question. I saw Mr. Williams made them a home. Ooh, so there's a question. How are the chickens?
Um, the chickens are funny.
He even makes chicken faces.
My daughter will. She's the one that spends majority of the time with them. So she'll go outside and let them out, and they run around. But it's kind of crazy. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just making myself more than what it is. But it is what it is. Every time I step out, it's like they line up in a row, and then they come here like straight towards me, like, "Hey, so what do you got for us today?" Like, or are you gonna hold us? I'm like, no, shoot, go on back over there. And then they just stop and look at me like, really? So you acting like this? Is it close to the end, or are we gonna be drumsticks?
Oh my gosh. Did you really have to say the drumsticks? I don't know if y'all can hear my daughter in the background. He is a chicken whisperer. I swear, I feel like we have chicken chat. I'll just call it chicken chat, like every day. Either he's telling a chicken story or my daughter's telling a chicken story, and I'm still scared of chickens. Like, I'm still scared of birds. I like to watch them and observe them.
From afar.
As they say, from afar. The bigger they get, the more I'm like, I don't know what to do. But yeah, the chickens they're quite interesting. They've been outside now for what, maybe 3 weeks, a month? It's been about a month.
Yeah.
About a month. So they are weathering monsoon season. We had a crazy storm roll through yesterday, but the chickens are doing well. And then Sylvia says animals can have amazing discernment. Yes. And when they see me, I don't know what they think. I don't have any chicken whisper in my bone. But I know that the dogs love me.
Yeah, they do.
Chicken chat sounds like its own podcast. Oh yeah. I definitely think my daughter could do a whole series on chicken chat. Seriously. She yeah. between the two of them. And it's funny. So the thing about the chickens is that when I started Outback LLC last year, one of the parents was like, "Dee, you should really get chickens." And I'm like, I didn't want to admit like I was scared of birds. And I'm like, no, I don't think so, you know. But then I started thinking about it more and more and more, you know, with the kids, like this would really be a nice added element considering we live in a city. Not in a huge city, don't get me wrong, but it would be a nice added like touch, A, to the program, and B, to for my family. And then pandemic happened, and it was just like, what better time to raise chickens when we're all home? So it just worked out that way. And now when I think about when Outback opens its doors again, probably in about a year, I'm being honest, we'll have chickens. And Miss Marion's asking, are you getting eggs? We will have eggs in the fall. So I think around what, October, November, somewhere
Yeah.
in that time frame. Um, but I want to say, like, part of making the decision about the chickens, or me being nervous about doing it, is that I'm not familiar with chickens. I didn't grow up with chickens. I don't know anything about chickens. But Mr. Williams here, I had to lean on my my expert here on chickens. And with lots of begging and pleading between myself and my daughter, he was like, okay, fine. But we made it pretty clear, like, if we got the chickens, because it was something my daughter really wanted, that she needed to do all the research, understand, like, how do you take care of them? How do you tend to them? What do they eat? What do they not eat? And so she did. And she's done a remarkable job raising the chickens so far. I just feel like somehow Outback kids will benefit. I don't know if I'm going to release them when the kids are here because I've got to get comfortable holding them. But I think he has something else to say.
The crazy thing about chickens are like my daughter, she handles them and they recognize who she is,
Mm-hmm.
but chickens have a tendency to follow people more who do not handle them.
Yes.
So for some small kids that might be a little intimidating,
Mm-hmm.
but like say chickens are funny. Either they like you and they gonna love on you, or else they will stray away from you and be like, I don't know you, you don't live here. I think you overstepping your boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. How many years did you raise chickens growing up? I forgot to ask.
I had chickens all my life.
So a good 18 years of his life, he was raising
Yeah,
chickens.
we had a huge chicken coop in the backyard. Like we had a big backyard, and our chicken coop was, be honest with you, probably about the size of a two-car garage.
Wow.
And we had a lot of chickens, so it was one of the chicken coops where the door was the size of a regular front door
Wow.
that you opened up, and you had the nesting benches and everything, and you just seen like all these chickens up in there. And then like if you wasn't really paying attention, we had a rooster, and this rooster was mean, and he would actually attack you.
Hmm.
And that was my first time I seen the chicken get in trouble because he tried it with my dad. And just to make a long story short, he never flew again.
Wow. Really? You had to end it like that? The
Yeah.
chicken never. Wow. Of course he did. I'm not surprised. All right. So I'm scrolling through the comments to see. It says that there were 4 or 5 people on. If I didn't give a shout out to you, hello, hi, thank you for joining today. I hope you enjoyed today's Facebook Live. I keep saying that backwards. Um, Mr. Williams is stepping out at this point. Um, and let's see. Ellen has a couple more comments. Have they always adored him? Was he born with this chicken magic? I think so, yes. And then Ellen says, my chickens only like me when I have the worm bag. Interesting. Sylvia says, "Oh, I had chickens for a very short time, and one of our roosters was really mean too. We cannot have roosters in the city limits, so we have to only have, what do you say, hens?
Mm-hmm.
We can only have hens
Brewers.
or brewers." All right, so Ellen is saying, thanks for coming, Mr. Williams. It was so fun hearing your stories. Fingers crossed we meet in the real world sometime. Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot wait till we can all literally see each other in person again. Um, Anyways, I hope you guys have a great Sunday and thank you for joining. And look out for this week's podcast. I'm changing the release dates to Thursdays instead of Wednesdays as I'm adding or returning back to old responsibilities. I'm needing to make some adjustments so I have the appropriate amount of time to release podcast. And then also, what you'll find is that I'll be releasing either 3 to 4 at a time, and then I'll take like a week off, or 2 weeks off, it just depending. But I definitely want to keep this series going. I've got about 6 more episodes within me that I feel like I can give on this particular topic on Black in Nature. And I'm looking into keeping the title Black in Nature, but also kind of incorporating it into a different perspective. So thank you guys for your continued support. And Sylvia says, no roosters. How do you get eggs then? I that's a whole nother series. Nice info, Charles. Love you both. Thank you, Miss Marion. Thank you for joining in. And I will see you guys next time, next week. Look out for the next release this Thursday. Be blessed in nature, friends.